Okay, so we're over on to the domain controller now. Let me just let you see that this is, you can see we've got Active Directory and Network Policy server installed. We're over on the domain controller and we want to take a look at the settings on the domain controller. Keep in mind the big picture that the dual authentication proxy then forwards the request over here. This is a separate box, a separate server, a separate IP address. And let's take a look at our our notes we're following. See here, so let's bring this up. So we went through all this. We talked about this in earlier videos. Let's go down here to the domain controller part of it. The testing of I think it's really great. You've got so many different players involved here that if you can stop and test as often as possible, it's easier to get Duo to work using the Active Directory client than it is getting it to work using the RRAS client. So I've just got a note here about testing. Okay. And then here's where we're at now. We're at looking at the domain controller. I should add one more thing here, and that's the authentication type. I missed showing you this when we were looking at the VPN server, and it's really important. So I'll show it to you here, and then we'll jump back and show you where the setting is on the VPN server. Okay. So again, we've got these different URLs and articles and stuff that all contributed some really great stuff to this. So let's go back here. So here we are. We're on the domain controller, and our focus on the domain controller is on the network policy server role. Now, none of this was automated. Where the network policy server portion on the routing and remote access or VPN server, much of that was automated. The remote radius server group and such, but not here. We did this all on our own. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Pretty straightforward. So the first thing to look at is that under Radius Client, this is the configuration that matches the dual authentication proxy. So wherever that dual authentication proxy is, by IP address, you're defining it here. You're defining who the client is allowed. So you're defining the client that's allowed to connect, its IP address, and then the secret, the shared secret between the two of you. And as we mentioned earlier, Windows can generate one, and they do a great job. In production, it seems to be the recommended way to go because it's an incredibly difficult secret. Okay, under advanced, not much there. Okay, so pretty straightforward here. You define. We're not using any templates here. You define the client. Again, we're on the domain controller. You're defining the client, which is the dual authentication proxy, who will be forwarding to here to continue the process of getting a VPN connection authorized. Okay, so it starts here. The request comes in here. When it comes in here, it's then sent here. Now, I only have the one policy. You could have more, but I only have the one. And it's a simple, this is a VPN request policy. And we've got the conditions, again, just like we saw on the network policy server on the VPN box. Not a lot you can do here, but again, daytime restrictions. You can do that. And then we go to the settings tab, and there is no forwarding here. Okay, this is saying authorize it right here. Where on the network policy server on R.RAS, we had this box checked, but no, this is saying the buck stops here. We're going to make the yes no decision here. Okay, which what happens then is it then sends it now to here. Okay, and again, you can have multiple of these. I just have one. So finally we're getting to here. Finally we're getting to the network policy, and this is where we get the control over that I was looking for. Okay, so I'm opening it up. We're again specifying that it's a VPN connection. We're using this is the decider. Under conditions, I can include my Windows group memberships, my daytime restrictions. Once again, under constraints, this is where I can set my idle time, my session limit time. And again, you can even set daytime restrictions if you'd like. NAS port type, we're specifying VPN. And then under settings, this is where I missed showing this to you. I'm looking for the authentication mechanism. Oh, while I'm here, just to mention that you can specify different levels of encryption, even to include no encryption. Okay. All right. Here it is. Okay. This is another really important thing. Radius works with PAP, Password Authentication Protocol. I did read one article where the gentleman said that they were able to get it to work with CHAP. CHAP is a little bit better. It does encrypt the password. This is why I chose to go only SSTP and not PPTP, is because SSTP, the secure tunnel, or SSTSL, anyways, the secure channel is established first, and then the password is delivered over that. This truly is a clear text password. My saving grace here is that it's being delivered through an encrypted channel. Now you need to make this setting both here and on the VPN server, and I'm sorry that I didn't catch that when we were back on the VPN server, but I'll go over there in a minute. Okay, so this is the thing. There's a lot written about it. Duo has an article on this, and they again say the same thing, that if you're using port 443, even though the password itself is in clear text, it is in an encrypted channel, and so in effect it is encrypted by its transport mechanism. And so you have to find your level of comfort with that, if you do or don't. And I did some research, and I did come to a level of comfort that PAP over SSTP or SSL, TSL, that it is secure. Okay, so you make that setting. Before I leave here though, let's just go into Active Directory and show you that we can use group membership here, and you can, it doesn't support nested groups. You can't put groups in groups here, which I'm not sure why, but it just doesn't. You literally have to put the user objects into this, and this is referenced in my policy here. It's referenced as one of my criteria right here, Windows groups. Okay, now if you go the other route, if you don't use if you go back, I'm speaking now about going back to Duo Authentication Proxy, and you don't go the Radius client route, you go the Active Directory route, this group still works. You can still do that, and this might be good enough for you. Just that a user, like, yes or no, you might say, okay, group membership, yes or no. If they're in the group, they can VPN in. If they're not in the group, they can't. And then you can use the daytime restrictions to narrow that down to say, okay, between these hours they can VPN in. I'm working in, as you know, the students. We're working with students, and in my case, it's important that we have idle times. We're using shared equipment. Multiple students are VPNing to the same resources, and so I needed that if a VPN connection is idle, that it disconnects. But you may not need that at all. Let's go back now and look at the same setting over on the VPN server. Okay, so here I go to the VPN server, I go to routing remote access, and I come up here, go to properties, and it's on the security tab, and it's right here. Okay, same thing. You might think, well, what happens if I check more than that? You can play with it, and you just have to have this one checked. It will attempt the most secure and kind of work its way down until it finds one that both the client and the server are compatible with. This just happens to be kind of a limitation of Radius, is PAP. Okay, so the default is that PAP is not checked. EAP is checked, and Microsoft Chat version 2 is checked, and I think IKEV2 is checked, but not PAP, and so you just got to get that. And if you troubleshoot in blocks along the way, then this will show up right away. It will show up right away. So now the thing that I haven't shown in the video, and I'll leave it up to you, is because it is client dependent, but on a Windows client, if you want to speed up the process, what you want to do is you want to tell the Windows client to use SSTP. Windows client for VPN on Windows 10 will go through IKEV2. It'll work its way down the list. If you know you're only needing SSTP, then tell the client SSTP, and then also you have to have the PAP box checked on your VPN connection client. Okay, you have to do that. So I'm just going to pause and say that again. When you're configuring the client to connect, the client has to be configured to use PAP. Okay, and for convenience sake, if you also configure the client to not automatically detect what type of VPN, but just use SSTP, you'll save yourself some time. It will just go right to SSTP. If you only select PAP, it'll attempt PAP, and it connects very quickly. and your credentials. You give your credentials. Windows 10 will save your credentials if you like, and then you've got a VPN connection. The overhead on SSTP is about 20%. So if you do some bandwidth testing, you'll see that you slow down by about 20% by invoking a VPN connection instead of just a straight connection. All right, that's it then. We've gone through the project start to finish, and all my videos were longer than normal, and I appreciate your patience with it. And I'm going to wrap this one up, and we'll get them uploaded to YouTube, and we'll just watch if there's any questions. So again, thanks for your patience, and I trust that you found this helpful.